victory and the agony of defeat.
Blows it away! Confidence apart! Cover is coming! Lines it and never get there!
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
I accidentally caught myself singing along to the introduction this week. My bad on that regard.
You're doing your version of Guppo.
But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. Don't mind our clothes being the same as the last episode because these are back-to-back recordings. We are not that big a bunch of slobs. But Sixties and myself coming back to you again for another preview podcast, this time focusing on the junior representatives as they enter the first week of their final series. All four teams in action, Sixties, which is exactly what you wanted to see at the start of the year, and deserve a reward for... look, it was a bit of a mixed bag of results across the four grades. They all walked different paths to get to the finals, but they all deserve their places there, and that's the important thing. They've punched their tickets, now got a chance to make a bid for glory with first start wins that'll put them through to more sudden death football. Big fella, I will give you a very, very, very brief chance to say hello and tell me how you're doing, because we just did our same introduction about an hour ago.
Yeah, finals time, baby. What can you say? A great time of the year, no matter what the competition. So just quickly, shout out to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. And importantly, a shout out to Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. The generous support that they have for junior rugby league there's so many great programs. They make rugby league affordable for families right across the Parramatta catchment area. Basically, the face of junior rugby league in the Parramatta district would not be the same without the support of Parramatta Leagues Club. So support the club that supports the future of the Parramatta Eels in Parramatta Leagues Club. And John, it's a really big week ahead with this. Well, we've got all four matches on at the same venue. So it's a really big Sunday, I should say, rather than week ahead. It's been a big week so far by the time the people are watching this, but it's a big Sunday out at Leichardt Oval. Back-to-back matches for the Parramatta Eels there. We're going in the order of the matches.
So it's an unusual docket. Yeah.
It starts with SG Ball. It ends with Tarsha Gale. So that's the order in which we're going. We're going to make this a little bit of a brief run through on each of the matches because we're throwing to our chat with Steve Georgallis after our quick previews, because we go into a bit more depth with Steve. We get his insights into what's been happening for the season thus far, the recent weeks, and what lies ahead in this first week of the finals. So we thank Steve for that. But I guess without any further ado, John, let's get stuck into the first of those games, which is the SG Ball.
Yes, 11:30 a.m. Leichardt Oval. Sunday, as the old salesman like to spruik. This one will be on Bar TV, as will all four games, alongside coverage on TCT. So if you want to jump in and join that conversation, feel free to do so through our live blogs across the four games. Eels finishing an undefeated season in the SG Ball, capped off with a big win against Manly last week, coming up against a team that stopped them from having a perfect season, 60s. The round 2 clash against the Roosters was a thrilling draw, which had an absolutely frenetic end. And now the Eels come to verse their former adversaries here again in week 1 of the finals. Sports, as we always say, the truth is stranger than fiction when it comes to this sort of thing. Eels look like this, 60s. Cameron Bamwood at fullback. You got Dom Ferrugia on the right wing, Aiden Kaburian down the left sideline, Anders Johansson and Nathan Howard in the centres as well, with the halves pairing of Lorenzo Talataina and Lincoln Fletcher, who have been truly outstanding, both individually and in combination. 60s been very, very impressive this year. Front row, Elijah Shane Tapa'u comes back into the starting front row rotation, and he'll partner Rada Talangi. Lachlan Koinakis is your dummy half. Josiah Funarayuta back after a week's rest, and he'll play on the right edge. Chris Petrus on the left edge in the back row. Max Popo at lock forward. That is a very, very good front row, but forward pack in general. And then speaking of very good players on the interchange, Tom Summer, Wesley Picotti, Trace Beattie, and big Isaac Jim. Great little bit of balance there between the effort and energy of Trace Beattie, the utility of Wesley Picotti, and then just the raw thunder of Isaac Jim. And Tom Summer, a great up-tempo middle forward as well. Loves his post-contact meters and ability to get second phase play. Extended roster, Bo Lucian, Lorima Saukuru, and Mark Williams. So Eels naming a few extended players there. Very good team, 60s. There are a couple of injuries in the SG ball, which we got no Lorima Rokasuka, and obviously Mason Ong's been out long term. But that is a very, very good team, regardless of injuries. And also shout out Lachlan Vella as well, not available too, I believe. So very, very good team, regardless of the injuries. And they've done a wonderful job building this roster. They've done a wonderful job coaching this roster with Mitch Lewis. They want to make sure they can build and not waste what they've done in the regular season and get through to week 2 of the finals with week 3 of the finals, because this is a modern top 8 structure. So a win here puts you through to the grand final qualifier. Yeah,
and as I said, we're just going to go through this quickly because we do talk in a bit more depth with Steve in the second half in our recorded chat with him. Well-balanced team, John. You're getting great value out of the spine. They've developed as the season's gone on. The player they have to watch for the Roosters from memory was their dummy half. He gave us all sorts of grief in the first round. Is he still playing?
Is that the same dummy half? Liam Bell has been named for the Roosters. Let me just go back to SG Ball round 2. Where is the 22 or draw here? No, it was Jackson Allen last time, 60s.
Where is Jackson Allen?
Where is Jackson Allen? Is he on the interchange? He is not. Jackson
Allen. Is he in Percy Flegg?
That would be a bold call to play a dynamic player like that in let me have a quick look at the flag. Well, I know we're trying to be on the sharper side of the time spectrum here, but I mean, they've got a few players missing from their flag team, but it doesn't look like Jackson Allen's playing flag. He might just be injured. That is a significant
Well,
amount.
if that's the case, he was the player.
He was the difference that stopped them from losing.
Yeah. It was because they grabbed that late draw, didn't they, with the Roosters? It was the Roosters coming back.
It was the Roosters coming back.
That late
we scored via Chris Petrus in the 65th minute. It looked like we had it won. Jackson Allen secures a short kickoff and then goes on to score from dummy half shortly after. And bearing in mind that he also secured a short dropout for the Roosters earlier in the game when the Eels were in complete command of the game. So he had a huge game in all phases of play. So a big out there for the Roosters. But like you said, 60s, very well-balanced team for the Eels. There is no glaring weakness in this roster. They play great all-round football. They've got good mix-up shapes. They've got just great general play. Their spine's very strong. Talatina, Fletcher, and Koinakis have been like the first picked 6-7-9 trio combination since round 3 when Lorenzo came back in the calculations. And Cameron Bamblitt's come back into this team starting as a half early on, but now as a fullback later in the season and looked fine. Like, he's been really good. So great spine, great forward pack, dynamic back line. They will have to lose this game, it feels like, rather than the Roosters win it. Like that's how good this team is. And you don't want to get too far over ahead of yourself because football, a lot can happen in the context of one game, but they have been the best team in this competition. And this is a team that does rival the 17 and 23 classes.
Yeah, they've grown as a team, and I think there's a lot of players that have put their hands up to say, I've got a future in rugby league as a player, and which augurs well as the Eels have to look to lock up the best of what is a very good team. So, John, I'm going to tip the Eels to get the job done here. It's first versus fourth. So, it's a contest. It's definitely a contest, and it's against a team, as you say, that they drew with earlier this season. So they won't be taking them lightly. But I think it's an Eels team which has grown throughout the year. So I'm going to confidently tip a victory to the Eels and the Eels to go, really deep into the finals. This one puts them through to the grand final qualifier, so it puts them through to week 3 of the finals if they get this win, which they should. And really looking forward to watching that.
We mentioned no Jackson Allen for the Roosters, which is significant. Also worth mentioning in that game back in round 2, no Lorenzo Talatana, massive inclusion obviously for Parramatta Eels. He's probably been the best player in the competition since he came back in round 3, and that is no small statement. But also we've also seen the emergence of Isaac Jim since the midpoint of the season, and that's a big boost to Parramatta's forward pack. So I like the Parramatta Eels here 60s, and I do think they punched their ticket to the grand final qualifier.
Yep. Okay, we now move to the Harold Matz's next cab off the rank at 1 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, 1 o'clock kickoff, same venue, obviously, like we said, all 4 games out at Leichardt. Eels come into this one sneaking into the finals in 8th place. They were looking at a 6th place finish at one point against Manly before the second half comeback from the Seagulls hurt the Parramatta Eels for and against. But Eels look like this. Riley Davis at fullback. You got Kobe McCloskey down the right sideline and Santiago Uata down the left. Cyrus Bloomfield and Christopher Moala are in the centres. In the halves, Talon Rosati will partner Caleb Leotau. And in the front row, Kasinga Noah alongside Billy Farnani as the 2 bookends. Giro Trey Stewart is the dummy half. Michael Nower running one of the edges with Samuel Polly on the other. Hayden Bell, who started the season at dummy half, has done a great job at lock forward since transitioning to that hybrid role there. Then you got Zach Withers, Curtis Brown, Chase Attard, and Strance Shamkul. Sorry, Strance. I make a mouthful of that one. As the interchange players, Jermaine Fa'afiu and Zane Alamadine, the 2 reserves. Eels, look, I don't know what to make of this 160s because in terms of pure talent, at their best, this Mats team can rival some of Parramatta's finest Mats classes in recent years. But the problem has been for the Eels is that highest highs and then the lowest lows, a lot of fluctuation and volatility, even in the course of singular matches, like we saw last week.
Even Manly. 5 minutes apart.
And even 5 minutes apart. So the Eels absolutely have the talent to win this one. There is no doubt about that as they take on the Central Coast Roosters. But it's going to be a task that falls upon their shoulders to minimise their mistakes, to minimise their lapses, and not keep the door open for their opposition, because that's where they've really hurt themselves throughout the season. And they've been better at it in the back half of the year, no doubt. Like they have managed to narrow the margin between the best and the worst. But we saw against Manly that can still spring open again. So I am reasonable. Look, I don't know if I'm confident of the win, but I am very confident the Eels have the talent to win. And there's no doubt they're gonna score a couple of tries in this game that'll blow your mind. That's how they play. Like incredible interplay between the spine, Riley Davis, Talon Rosati, in particular having great combinations with the outside inside. They've got a talented backline. Kobe McCloskey's been very impressive on the right sideline. Cyrus Bloomfield is an uber talented centre. I mean, he's got the ability to play fullback as well, transition the centres, and you see him for a couple of plays a game just completely blow his opposition centre away. Same thing with Chris Moala, who's been great at right centre. We like the back rowers, Noah, Polly, Bell. Kasinga Noah's done a great job moving from edge to middle, so plenty of talent in this team. It's going to be about how much they manage to mitigate their bad plays.
John, unlike the SG Ball team, who've had a fairly settled spine, they've had quite a bit of fluctuation in the spine through injury or Josh Hodgson maybe experimenting with different players within that position. The constant there has been with Talon in the 5/8 position, but we've seen changes at half. We've seen changes at fullback. We've seen changes in the dummy half. So that's probably the aspect of the team where hopefully this is the settled spine now going through the final series. I don't want to see any changes now that unless of course you get injury or suspension, and you don't suspension, that sort of thing. But that's probably been the area where I think the coach has been uncertain about how he's going to get his best results this season.
Yep.
But just going back to this week's game specifically, they played the Central Coast Roosters 2 weeks ago. It was a fiery game. There was a lot of feeling in it. Right through to the, final seconds of the game, producing the winning try for the Eels. As we spoke about with Steve, it was a tight contest as opposed to a lot of Harold Matt's games. It was only 10 points to 6. Yes, the field was a little bit damp because of all the rain that had happened in the previous days and a little bit earlier that day. But it was still a tough physical contest. Both teams brought it that day. I thought it was actually one of the best Eels performances that I've seen this season, albeit that for most of the game it was only one try apiece. So it was just a good quality game of football, high tension. The Eels probably would like to get a more comfortable win this week. However, they are playing a higher placed team in the Central Coast Roosters. When they played the Central Coast Roosters a couple of weeks back, the Roosters were sitting in second place. And by virtue of that loss, and I'm assuming a loss the week after, without looking back at their track record, they've fallen down to fifth place. Now, that of course says to you, first of all, from the result the previous match, that it was a tight contest. That they've had a reasonably good season, the Central Coast Roosters. They've probably been a little bit more consistent than the Eels, but we know the football that the Eels can produce. It's a matter, like you said, John, you said the only way that the Eels lose the SG ball is if they beat themselves. Now, in the Harold Matthews, we've seen evidence where they have beaten themselves this season. And they followed up. Anyone that hasn't seen that first week, the last week's first half.
What a microcosm of their season that was.
But that was such a terrific brand of football that they played.
And that's why I said that this Harold Matthews team can rival any of the great Harold Matthews teams the Eels have put out in the last decade plus at their best. Because you watched that first half against Manly, it was incredible football. Like, seriously impressive stuff. But the second half happens.
Yes, yeah. And it's errors get made, maybe a bit of communication doesn't happen in defence. And they conceded rapid points both times that Manly scored. It was back-to-back, early in the second half, then late in the second half. And it was it was a match where the Eels were the better team for the majority of the game against Manly, but a second half that was nothing like the first. So, but we talk about that in more detail with Steve. So, getting into this, if the Eels can produce what they did 2 weeks ago, they beat the Central Coast Roosters. I'll tip them to do that this week. I think they're going to be ultra focused because it is finals football. And I'd say, like last week, they were ultra focused in that first half. They just got to keep that focus for the full 60 minutes that they play in this grade. So first 30 minutes, get it done. Second 30 minutes, get it done. Yep. So I'll tip the Eels in this, John.
Yeah, look, again, in terms of pure talent, in terms of the personnel and their ability to play high-level football concepts, I love what the Eels can do. It's going to come down to, again, mitigating and minimising their lapses and their errors. And if they do that, I think they win and win well. As close as that game was last week before last. And I think Carter Mareko, their halfback and captain, he was probably their best player in that game. So putting a lid on him will be key. And I think the Eels can get this one done. It's not absolute conviction here, but certainly in terms of talent, they can get it done. And I trust that they will have the gumption and the grit on the day to get it across the line.
Okay, so we now go to the Lisa Fiola Cup, which kicks off at 2:30. And it's the Eels again playing the Central Coast Roosters.
Bit of symmetry there. And the Eels looking to bounce back off that last start loss against the incredible Canterbury Bulldogs outfit. They look like this. At fullback, it's Ire Sevilla. You've got Sienna Bonello running the left sideline and Freedom Crichton Rapati on the right. Very good wingers there. Georgia Wanzi had 2 tries last week and should be looking to emulate that in the Week 1 finals. She's in the left centre slot. Cody Tuamaseve down the right. Sharon Latapu and Tamika Withers have been the 6 and 7 all year and done a great job in the front row. Mere Sivo and Isabella Bell are your starting bookends. Bowie Ma Chong at dummy half. Kaiser Morgan Pritchard and Mitzi Cairns are the edge back rowers. Now, I have to just quickly run to New South Wales Rugby League here because the Eels have got a vacant lock forward role right now. Lisa Fioala here.
It's KT. Is it KT or Duff?
Katia Duff is the usual lock forward, but there isn't just a complete absence there. What about the Eels team list here? Sorry,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at the Eels.
So
team
you're looking
list.
at the because I was looking at the match center stuff here, and so Katia Duff was named in the she was named in the team list post. Sorry, I was looking at the match center so we'll have a gander at the opposition teams here. I don't know why there's a vacant thing in the match center. But moving to the bench, you've got Alicia Meza, Anika Penatani, Olivia Saba, and Evelyn Kawendu. So probably the biggest absentee here is Leonia Vay, 60s, who I believe is still injured. But Eels still fielding a pretty handy lineup between the starters and the interchange. But the Central Coast Roosters, they come to this one in second place. They dropped just the one game. The Eels will drop 2 games after that Bulldogs loss. But the 2 teams did not meet. So this is very much new ground for both sides. And they'll be doing all their scouting just on video, not based on results against each other. And I don't know if that plays into either side's favour. But it'll be very, very telling to see how the Eels bounce back here. Because they got handled by the Bulldogs. And they've got to try and flush that, reset, and get back to what they do best and how they play the football.
Yeah, look, the Bulldogs are on a different level to most teams, but the Central Coast Roosters have enjoyed a really strong season. We talked with Steve Georgallis about the vagaries of the draw, so I won't go too much into that, but it's obvious that the Roosters have a very strong defence because they only conceded 22 points all season. So they've averaged less than 3 points a game scored against them. So they're not used to tries being scored in this against them in this grade, and that's going to be interesting for the Eels because if the Eels can add a bit of scoreboard pressure, then you would expect that it's going to be new territory for the Roosters to face. Look, John, I really like the work of the spine in this Lisa Fioala Cup team.
Yep.
It is a well-balanced team, but the spine adds that little bit of extra class about it. You've got halves that handle the ball in 2 hands out in front of them. So they're good with the ball work. Their organisational skills are very good for 16, 17-year-old players. And they complement each other as well because probably you've got Sharon Latapu, who does have that little bit more of a running game, and she's also got a really good short kicking game as well. So it adds that little bit of variety to the team. And I think Savayas brought in a threat when she joins in that attacking line. She's very good at bringing the ball back.
Very productive for kick returns, very productive.
Yeah. And Bailey Ma Chong is constantly asking questions of opposition teams because when she's distributing the ball, she'll take the team forward. But she's also got that running game out of dummy half, and she's got the kicking game. Now, I think from memory, the Eels scored the first try against the Bulldogs last week, and I think from memory it was Bailey kicking out of dummy half with the long kick downfield that Freedom, Crichton, Rapati chased through on. And Freedom is obviously a weapon for the Eels.
She's
in attack.
as much an X factor as a winger can be in this grade.
And
she's a very good talent.
And in that instance, it was her kick chase and defensive pressure that she applied. But she's really an awkward conveyance for opposition defences to tackle. And that try she scored a few weeks back, where it was like watching an NRL wingers try, where her entire body was out over the sideline, and somehow she managed to ground the ball. It was a spectacular effort. But look, aside from that, they've just got a really good balance across the team. If they play their best football, they get this job done and they go through the grand final qualifier, because it is second against third. So the winner advances to week 3 of the finals. John, I think I really believe that they'll get the job done this week against the Roosters.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of reasons to believe they can bounce back. Worth mentioning too, they do get 2 bites at the cherry. That's a reward for finishing inside the top 4. So it is all is not lost if they do lose, unlike the Harold Matthews who are in sudden death situation. But yeah, I do think that they can get the win here. It's going to be tough though. We don't know a lot about the Central Coast Roosters, having not met them. Whereas, having that head-to-head of the Bulldogs gives you a lot more insight into the standards of play. But this team, there is every reason to think they can get it done. And like I said, you'll learn a lot about how they bounce back from the loss against Canterbury this week. And I think a good win here gives them a strong chance, not just on the result of getting through to the grand final qualifier, but mentally gives them a great shot at getting through to the big dance. So, every reason to think they can get it done. And that takes us to the final one here, 60s, which of course is the Tarsha Gale Eels qualifying in 5th, hosting the 8th. Well, I say hosting, but they are the home team, hosting the 8th by Sharks out at Leichardt, 4:00 p.m. kickoff. Eels coming off a fantastic and courageous win against the Bulldogs to hand them their first defeat of the season and actually change the complexion of the final series, I believe. If you look at how things shook up, the Dogs were tracking for the minor premiership and actually gave way to the Steelers because of that. So Eels are influencing the ladder massively there. And
we're about to see a very big team list change in what you're about to read out here, John.
In the match centre as opposed to the official one, which I have to pull up again because let me just go through the official team list and then we'll look at the match centre and see what's being said. So we start at fullback. This one is not a change, as we've come accustomed to. Dallas Graham-Wivel is your custodian. You got Suala Lafonga on one wing and Avino Rakoma Ngata on the other. Sammy Lee Gunn Ta'awai, who we've been accustomed to playing in the 6, is now in the centres, with Maria Fasavalu Fa'amasuli in the other centre slot. Kylia Gray, who was in the centres and was in the back row prior to that, is in the 6. Now, is this
That's what I was hinting at. Is
this shenanigans 60s, or is there something at play here? We'll have to wait and see. This is very exciting, though. And prospectively, Kalia Gray partnering Elias Sufan in the halves. Tess McWilliams and Taylor Falanico are your starting bookends, although Taylor has the 16 on her back, as she has had all season, but she will be starting in the front row. Ava Jones, a dummy half. Fontaine Tafua and Matoisha Kalepo are the edge forwards. Riverly Arlor rounding out a very talented back row. You got Amani Lee Ava'a starting the game on the interchange with Rory Muir. You got Liliette Tapuli, Alana O'Loughlin, and Anahira Payakau. Is that for Alana O'Loughlin being the last bench player there? Sorry, Anahira Payakau and Shia Tokolich are the 2 reserve players. And let me just see how that lines up against the match centre here, making sure. Yeah, so Kylia Gray still in the 6 with Sammy Lee Gunn Ta'awai in the number 3, so playing in the centres again provisionally. And then there are no changes to the interchange there. So, yeah, Payakau and Tokolich are your reserves. They're taking on the Cronulla Sharks 60s, and this is an important one to mention because the Eels were in absolute cruise control after a month of football, and coming out of the bye, they got mega ambushed by Cronulla out at, in the Shire. They were playing out the school there, I believe. And
what was it, about round 4?
Round 4, I believe. There were 3 wins and a bye coming into round 5.
Oh, yeah, so round 5.
Yeah.
That'd be round 5 then. Yeah.
And they got blown off the park by a hungry and energised Cronulla outfit that just took the ball away from them for the first 13 minutes of the game, scored a couple of tries, just ran them off the park. And that was, if you're going to look up the definition of a rugby league ambush, that was it right there. Eels were, like I said, in cruise control coming into that round, had played great football, and then just got blown away. So they're going to be far more cognizant, far more prepared, far more aware of what Cronulla can do, and that'll certainly level the playing fields. And of course, the Eels too, finishing better than the Sharks across the way of the season. That is not to be dismissed. This is going to be a fascinating game because that was that was easily their worst result of the season, wasn't it? 60s. They had some bad losses in terms of mechanics and self-harm with a failure to complete sets and some defensive lapses after that. But in terms of just pure not being in the contest, that was easily the worst game of the season.
Yeah, it definitely was. John, last week we talked about it in depth with Steve Georgallis. It was a really impressive result. The forwards won the physical battle, so they went a long way towards getting that victory. But we saw the backs being able to play off the back of that. Now, the interesting move of Kylea Gray, who has been playing in like it seems like all over the field now. They obviously want her to get her hands on the ball more often, and she's almost played like a playmaker in her other positions on the field. So I guess Shah Henry's bitten the bullet and said, well, you look like a playmaker, you play like a playmaker, we'll put you into a playmaker role. And that's basically, I think, why she's ended up in the 6 position for this. She is a threat both carrying the ball and distributing the ball. She seems to have a really good game sense. And at the start of the season, she was on the bench from memory.
She was, and she was making a huge difference as an impact forward. But yeah, just you hear the term bandied about a lot, but just a natural footballer. Kylea is absolutely an exemplar of that. She just needs to get her hands on the ball, whether she's playing lock forward, whether she's playing centres, or in this case 5'8". And I do implore fans that are watching us or listening to us to go to the New South Wales Rugby League highlight package for the Tarsha Gale in round 9 and look at the work she did in scoring that opening try for the Parramatta Eels, and then the backhanded offload with 2 or 3 defenders on her. Just phenomenal stuff, supreme talent. And yeah, you can see why Shah Henry wants her involved more, because good things happen when she's on the ball. And I will say that it does put more onus on Aaliyah Sifan as the organizer and as the primary ball handler for the team. So that's going to be more on her plate to make sure that the team is in sync, in tempo, in rhythm, on time, on schedule. All those ways of saying stick to the plan. But yeah, I am interested to see what Kylea can do with her hands on the ball more as a running 5'8".
She's almost got a touch of Folletti Mateo.
There is a bit of that too. Just a really talented ball playing back rower. She probably is a little bit more physical than Folletti relative to their age, age for sort of grade sort of stuff, because she does relish going into the line, and whereas Folletti could be a bit too much finesse at times. But yeah, there is definitely a comparison there. Yeah.
So, John, as I said, we've gone into a little bit more detail with Steve Georgallis in examining this team's prospects, but again, as we've said, they've got it's almost feels like we're on repeat with this comment. But if they play to their best, they win this. If they make those errors, which they've had those moments of this season, it's a case of beating themselves. So, if they play to their best, they get the job done with this, and they get to the second week of the finals. And we have to point out this is an elimination final for them, so they do need to win the contest. Last week, their spot was guaranteed, I think, regardless of the result. They would have had to have lost by 80 points.
Yeah, we did run through the hypothetical there, but it was essentially all but guaranteed.
Yeah. But this week, it is a genuine sudden death match for them. I do expect them to get the job done. I expect we saw the best from so many players last week, and I think they'll again deliver this week. They'll be ultra focused. The only way they lose it is if they beat themselves. So, because as we said, they'll be ready for the Sharks this time. There won't be any ambush. So, they'll get the job done, mate. Confident.
I do like the energy. again, being forearmed and forewarned is oftentimes half the battle. Having a feel for your opposition. We mentioned it, the opposite for the Lisa Fioala. They haven't played the Central Coast Roosters. They don't know what is coming. They'll do their video scouting, don't get me wrong. Like, they will study up on who they need to be watching out for and what they can exploit. But having that head-to-head game does make a difference. And I think getting, their backsides handed to them earlier in the season will be energizing here. They know what to expect. They know how much of a physical and torrid contest they're in for. And I think that they're going to be much better for it. So I do like. I know it's cheesy to tip for Parramatta to win 60s, but there is, like I said, these are talented teams. There is every reason to think that we can get the sweep in round one of the finals or week one of the finals. So, yeah, I am with you. I think that Tarsha Gale, again, being forearmed and forewarned, are in a great position to take the bickies this week. So I think that's a nice way to wrap things up. Obviously, all the action.
Can I just mention as well, there has been a big out, I think, for the Eels throughout the back end of this season. Leah Scrivens.
Yes.
She was playing some great football out on the wing, but she was very influential through the middle of the field. Great goal kicker. So we mentioned that there had been players out all through the grades, and I think she was a significant out for the Eels Tarsha Gale team through the back end of this season. So, and we don't know what sort of injury or what the situation is with Aaliyah, but hopefully we see her back on the footy field soon.
Fair shout. And on that note, we'll wrap things up for our part of the preview. Though sit tight and stick around, because arguably the far more impressive part of the podcast is coming up. We did sit down with Steve Georgallis on Wednesday out at Kellyville in the Eels HQ, and had a fantastic chat with him about all 4 junior rep grades, their journey to the finals, and what they sort of are looking at or facing this weekend, as well as a chat about the NRLW. So stay tuned here. Again, massive thanks to Steve for taking time out of his very busy schedule. Again, reminding you that he wears 2 hats. He's both the high performance director or pathways director for the Eels.
Elite Pathways,
yeah.
Coaching director.
Potato, tomato. The Elite Pathways coaching director there, and the NRLW coach. And he is a very busy man, especially now as the NRLW, it's just around the corner. So the preseason is not too far off for them, and he's sort of getting all his logistical stuff done there, including the addition of Fleur Ginn, yes. And we spoke to him about that and much more. So enjoy.
Finals time, John.
Yes, sir.
Great to be there in the junior reps. And of course, the Eels have now qualified for the finals in every grade. And who better to talk to about the achievements thus far and the prospects for the finals than the Eels Elite Pathways Coaching Director, Steve Georgallis. Great to have you with us again, Steve, and thanks for your time today.
No worries at all, Craig, and good to talk to both you and John. It's been fantastic to get all 4 teams in the finals. It's something that, we set a goal at the beginning of the year. Well, actually, probably pre-season, starting in November last year, and we've achieved that. And now, we're looking forward to the finals and trying to progress as far as we can.
Really looking forward to digging into each of the prospects too. But look, just to start this catch-up, I wanted to ask you about last week, because it was the first matches played at the brand new match field here at Kellyville. Must have been exciting for the Flag, the Fioala, the Gale teams to christen the new venue. What do you think of the facility, and what sort of feedback have you had from the staff and players after that first week?
Oh, look, everyone really enjoyed, the first games at Kellyville, and start of what's going to be a regular occurrence here. The parents love the fact that obviously the facility is sitting down watching the game, but as the future holds, there'll be cafes and there'll be so much going on, and everyone loves it. All the teams that were playing on the weekend loved it, and obviously the Jersey Flag won the first game, played on Kellyville as the centre of excellence. So yeah, mate, it was a great day, and then Tarsha Gale beat the undefeated Bulldogs.
What an effort. We'll get to that later. Very, very excited to talk about that one.
Yeah, so it was a great day all round, and as you know, and you can see that you know, we've got 4 fields here and the facilities are fantastic and it's going to be state of the art. And, you know, Parramatta deserve it. They've got such a, you know, massive pathway system and you know, yeah, again, they deserve this sort of facility.
And before we get into the teams, let's talk overall achievements so far because there are 4 teams we'll break down after. But is it validation of the Pathways program to have each grade qualify for finals football, or is that the minimum expectation for the Parramatta Eels? Or I suppose, you know, not to be offensive, but is it a bit of both?
Look, I think you're right. It's a bit of both. I mean, we set a goal for, you know, all teams to make the finals. You know, and that's a tick for us. But again, you know, it's all dependent on injuries and you know, what happens during a game, how strong the other teams are. But it's a bit of both. But it is a minimum for us, you know, as a group that in the pathways that we make the finals. And
we spoke about it in the past, right, Craig? Even more so than the NRL. Strength of schedule in your draw has a big factor too, because we saw last year the Harold Matts going through undefeated, finishing third because they had 2 draws against the other 2 undefeated teams who didn't play each other. So yeah, those little factors do add up, but Eels doing a good job this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, it's always tough to expect teams to get through the season unscathed. So how are the teams close to full strength this week?
Yeah, we've got, I think there's probably 1 or 2 players playing with niggles. And probably Harold Matt's squad, Josh's squad's probably been the team that's been affected most by injuries, you know, with a few players out. But, you know, the Harold Matt's squad has progressively got better and better as the season's gone on, and those players that have come through that usually wouldn't have started the year if obviously starting towards the back end of the year are playing some good football. So, you know, we've unearthed a bit of talent there. You know, and same with the SG ball. And I know the squads of 26, 27 players, and each team you've got to play a minimum of 2 games to qualify for the finals. So a majority of the players were qualified for the finals. So, you know, knock on wood, we're going in quite healthy in relation to players, but it does have its effect.
I guess with a little bit of misfortune for some comes opportunity for others. As you were saying, you know, people have had their chance to shine and, you know, really have done exceptionally well when they've been called up.
Yeah, no, they have, and I think it's like a credit to the coaches, you know, with their standards and the structures and their training programs, that, you know, those players can come in and do the job.
Good news for sure, and that's really reinforcing stuff. So let's start talking about the individual teams, and we'll start with the Fioala Cup, who finished the regular season in 3rd place after falling to the undefeated Bulldogs in round 9 of the competition. Canterbury are a powerhouse team, there is no doubt about that. What lessons can Ryan Walker and his players take from a heavy defeat on the eve of the finals? I mean, I've heard it said to me by a good football mind that you often learn more in a loss than you do from a win. Is that the case here for Parramatta Eels heading into the finals?
Yeah, look, Ryan had a game plan going into the Bulldogs game about, you know, obviously controlling the ball, you know, kicking and playing field position, and that's what you got to do against a bigger team, physically a bigger team, and you've got to be squeaky clean in relation to errors and penalties. So I thought the first half, probably the first 10 minutes, they did that, and you know they shocked the Bulldogs with the early try, and you know, and then probably towards the last 15 minutes of that half, probably didn't play as well as they should have, and the score sort of blew out. But Ryan challenged them at half time about their physicality, and it's hard because you remember some of those Bulldogs girls are twice the size of our girls. But credit to our team. I think they played a better second half, and physically they got in the way, which is all you can ask. And you know, and probably made the score a little bit more respectable than what it could have been, because those scores can blow out, and they've been beating teams by 60, 70 points.
We've seen more than 70 from the Bulldogs this year. I think they might have hit 90 at one point. So there's seeing that physicality in the second half is an encouraging sign. It's not just trying to salvage something from the loss. It definitely is a good response to what the coach told them at half time.
Yeah, and I think they know what they need to do to be competitive in those games. And I think that's the biggest thing they can learn from that game. Obviously, as they go through, they'll meet them again, if not in the semis or in the final. But as you said, you learn a lot from losses, and those players will learn that physically they can still be competitive.
That's the standard they're now chasing. I think it was important they met the Bulldogs in the regular season for that reason. Yeah,
absolutely. Now this week, the girls take on the Central Coast Roosters in the qualifying final on Sunday. The Roosters finished second. They lost just a single match this season and incredibly conceded only 22 points for the entire season. However, they didn't play either the Eels or the Bulldogs in their draw. So what sort of form line can we draw from their season, as we come up against them as an opponent for the first time?
Yeah, that's probably the thing that's hard in these competitions, because you don't play each other. Some teams may get through to the top 8 without actually playing some of the harder teams, and some teams may miss the 8 because they're in the stronger side of the draw. What do you take from that? And I think, because realistically speaking, the top 8, anyone can win. And you could have a bad day, you could have a good day. So Ryan won't be taking that team lightly. And the girls have got to play up to their best and be competitive. But the girls are playing with confidence, and they're going to expect to come out and give a good performance. But as you well know, it's like playing trials. Teams losing trials and come out in round 1 and win games. So you just got to be careful with, just because they hadn't played the Bulldogs or the tougher teams in that side of the draw, they've still got to be ready for a tough and prepare themselves for a physical game.
Right, let's talk Tarsha Gale now, because this team produced arguably their grittiest performance of the season, and perhaps of the program's history, with a win over the then undefeated Canterbury Bulldogs in round 9. Sixties and myself were saying we still don't think that they played to their potential on all sides of the ball, but Shah Henry and her team must be buoyed by that result, because that was a really gutsy effort.
Yeah, I went to their training last night, and the energy that they've got from that win is unbelievable. I mean, they're full of confidence. They challenged the Steelers the week before.
They did. They should have won.
And were unlucky. And the win on the weekend against the Bulldogs is probably the best physically I've seen that team play. They didn't take a backward step. Tess McWilliams, River, Fontaine, even Taylor, they physically held the middle.
Tess has had a very good back half of the season, I feel like, watching her play, and she's not the only forward in that regard, but being really solid in the middle. And then I suppose I encourage everyone to watch the highlights, because Kylie Gray put on a clinic.
Yes, Kalia's been getting better every game. She started the season off the bench, and now she's probably the first picked in that team.
And from being a middle forward to playing out in the centres, which is just crazy versatility. And the backhand flick she put on for that try down the right sideline is as good as anything you'll see in the junior pathways. Yeah,
she's playing some real good football, and we're very happy, because at half time they weren't playing well, and I can't exactly tell you what Shah said at half time, but I thought to myself, wow.
It was a rallying of the troops.
Yes, and they come out and they reacted and responded and really deserved that win. I'm so happy for that team. Those girls really deserve it, because you don't know the amount of training those girls do, and a lot of those girls are also first year work, out of school. There's a lot of balancing life. There's a lot of things that are going on. So in that period of being 17, 18, 19, it can be tough, knowing your place in the world. So they've done a great job.
There was certainly a lot of jubilation at full time.
Yes.
Yeah. It was
a natural response, and obviously it's carried through to the training session, like Steve mentioned, which is great signs. So they'll be fit and fired up for next week's Sixties, which leads us nicely into your question.
Yeah, well, it is a very pertinent question, because they faced the Sharks in the elimination final. The Sharks finished in 8th place, but they were the team that ambushed the Eels earlier this year when we were on an absolute roll. early in the season, and they inflicted Parramatta's first defeat. They did that on the back of winning the middle, and we've just been talking about winning the middle. Is it fair to suggest the Eels are going to be well and truly ready for that physical battle this time round?
I think you can be correct in saying that, because I think that's our strength, the middle. And you're right, they got ambushed, and as you said before, they would have learned a lot from that game.
Yeah, it was. It was actually a surprise, because we use that word ambush because just the way the Sharks attacked through the middle, that is our strength, and they just went bang.
Just took the ball away from Parramatta for a good 10, 12-minute window in the first half.
And I suppose that's where we go back to the point of we hadn't played them before, we didn't know what to expect. Yep. The same is going to happen this weekend. You're playing teams you haven't played before, you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, you do your scout reports, but it's not the same as having...
Whereas I think with the Tarsha Gale, they're going to play majority of the teams that they've played before, so they know what to expect, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Now, earlier this year when we were chatting with you, we dubbed the SG Ball the Cardiac Kids, but maybe we were wrong about that one because we'll get to the Ball shortly, but they've obviously had a very strong finish to the year. But the Harold Mats had to defeat the sixth-place Sea Eagles to qualify for the finals on Sunday, and they did basically wrap up that result via an ultra-impressive first half, and it was beautiful football. However, the second half provided some uncomfortable moments, to say the least. How do you view that performance? Because we know that the Harold Mats can be a volatile grade. It's very talented young men playing football, but sometimes the basic can slip away, and it opens the door for your opposition and for the Parramatta Eels, for that sake, to go on runs.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that's Harold Mats. You'll get scores 38, 36, 26, 24, and on the weekend 26, 20. Because, a lot of these players are learning about the game and about game management and understanding about momentum and, holding the ball and playing field position. Fortunately for us, we started well.
Yes,
really well.
And key in these games.
We had 19 sets and we completed most of them. The penalty count was in our favour. Scoreboard was in our favour. We, got a few penalties in front. We were patient. Josh has done a great job with that team because he's had a lot of injuries this year and he's had a lot of players. He's had to move around, Riley back to fullback, Cyrus in the centres, and some of the forwards, Michael Now and Kasinga going into the middle and things like that.
Always bounce around between lock and
lock and back row. So they've done a great job, and that first half was what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the second half, we knew Manly were going to come back. They got the momentum, they got the penalty count, and they started to chase down the score. Yeah, but fortunately for us, we scored that try. To make the score 26-14 with a few minutes to go, and then Manly scored that late try. But they had the momentum in the second half, and we had to stop it, which we did. And to get that try, which just gave us enough leeway to win that game. But yeah, I'm so happy for that group and Josh because they had to win that game, and it was elimination finals have already started for them, and they won. And then they've got another one on this weekend. And
I really do want to credit Hodgson and his young players there, because we do talk about the lapses they had in that game, but you look at that first half and the structures they played and their ability to execute very high level football concepts, kind of similar to like the prime Melbourne Storm with the outside-inside playmaker theme. They've done it throughout the season beautifully. I mean, Talon Rosati, Riley Davis, Kobe McCloskey, that right edge has been phenomenal in that regard, and we saw that against Manly. So that they play incredibly high-level football when they're switched on. Cyrus Bloomfield down the left. There was some really good tries. They play. I've used the term champagne rugby. They play champagne rugby. At their best.
There's some of that flat and fast footy. Playing on the advantage line. Going through teams, taking advantage, numbers up. That inside-outside play on the short side. They're playing some really, really good football. But again, they've got to understand that in finals football, it's about field position and possession of ball. And so they can't give away cheap possession. And there was a few instances in the second half where they gave away cheap possession. And it cost them, not to the point where, I know Josh, he hasn't got any hair now, but at this point in the second half where
he was born to be a coach.
Yeah, he looked at me and, and we both looked at each other and said, you know, we just need to get the momentum back, which they did for enough period in the second half.
We mentioned it in our breakdown, but it was Talon Rosati with the big play. Defensively, I think he jolted the ball free, allowing Chris Fioala to scoop it up and score against run and play.
That's right.
So
yeah,
they're the moments you look for when the game's going against you. You need people to step up.
And Talon's a big, he's a big game player too. Yes. So it was good for him to and he's the captain. It's the captain's play. Again, I'm just so happy for that team and Josh.
Yep.
I'm getting that win.
From where they were earlier in the season, it's been a tremendous effort to haul themselves in the finals, and they can do some damage now.
Yeah, well,
same thing last year. The Warriors scraped in and ended up winning.
We spoke about that last time we actually did the podcast.
And you were just talking about, that's maths, and you get those high scores. They did come up with a couple of terrific defensive plays to prevent, like in our right corner, Manly's left corner in the first half, to shut down what I thought was certain tries. Yep. I thought Manly were going over, and
actually we were talking about that, Josh, at the end of the game, that defensively they came up with 3 or 4 try-saving tackles, and it's why they won the game. Defensively they were really good in that first half. I'm pretty sure there was 2 times they were over the line, one was held up and one we took over the sideline or the dead ball line.
We got a 20-metre restart.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, looking at this week, because the opponent this week being the Central Coast Roosters, and it's an elimination final. And we talked about those high-scoring games. This was the opposite when we played them a couple of weeks ago, because we got that try right at the end to give a 10-6 win. Now, that's an unusual scoreline, as you've pointed out.
38-36 scores before.
And it was literally that final minute. It was a volatile game, a high-tension game. We know that the Central Coast Roosters are going to be tough to overcome. They were sitting higher in the table. They had a couple of late season tough losses that have dropped them down so that they're in that elimination category with us. So what's Josh going to be looking for from the team to get that result again over the Roosters?
I think that was, I don't know, it was that team or the team before they played where they showed a big amount of physicality in the middle of the football field. I think it would have been Sam Polly may have been moved to the back row. Young Curtis
Brown.
He came up. Played Kasinga a little bit in the middle as well. Physically, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. They've decided, to match.
Roll up the sleeves.
Roll their sleeves up, get dirty, and match the opposition. And I think that's where they win the game on the weekend. They've got to do that. And I think that game, whether it was 10-6, probably had rained the day before, which made the score quite low. You weren't going around teams, you were going through them. And I think that's the game where they physically decided, well, if you want to score, you have to go through us. And that allowed them to be the ones that scored late to win that game. But it's going to be a tough game, very tough game.
Yeah, looking forward to it too. But now let's move on to the SG Ball. And they became deserved minor premiers and wrapped up the season, actually had the minor premiership wrapped up before the ball was kicked on Sunday due to the Bulldogs upsetting Rabbitohs. But they wrapped up their season with an emphatic 46-10 victory over the Seagulls. And with respect to our opposition there in Manly, was it beneficial to have a less intense hit out before the finals? Those things are always hard to gauge. Do you want the big tune-up game, have it close like our Tarsha Gale, or was this a good chance to just get through, give some players some more playing time, and get ready for?
It's a tricky one because you can't control the draw and who the tougher teams are going to be. Do you get them at the beginning? Do you get them at the end? I think the biggest thing with the SG Ball is they're the ones that decide if they're going to win or lose. And at the moment, they're playing such good football. And whoever plays in the team, again, Mitch has done a great job.
Guys are coming in and just doing a phenomenal job.
Doing their job, he sets standards, everyone knows their job, and they're playing good football week in, week out. In regards to your question, I don't think it's going to affect him too much because it allowed them to qualify a lot of their players. I think they've, out of their squad of 27, 28, all players have played 2 games minimum. So he's got, he can choose whoever he wants. So he basically can choose the best 17, 18 players to play in the first final. And they obviously got the opportunity to get a second chance if something does happen, and they earned that. But again, back to the relation, I don't think it'll affect them that much playing a team that's probably lower on the table. And then, they've got their big game this weekend, but they're going to have their best 17, 18 players playing.
Very exciting stuff, and I'll let you lead into that game, 60s.
Yes, because they play the 4th place Roosters in the qualifying final, and the Roosters actually prevented the Eels from winning every game because they forced a draw
Round 2
early in the season. Yeah,
I remember that game at Mascot, at the end. It was a short kickoff.
Frenetic finish,
yeah. Is it fair to say that Mitch has taken this team to another level since that clash?
Oh, definitely. They have got better and better every game they're playing. I think, I don't know, I wasn't too sure, did Lorenzo play in that game? No, he didn't. He came back the week after, but I love watching that kid play, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
He's got...
He has it, doesn't he?
Yes, he's got speed to burn, and sometimes I turn to Mitch and he scores a try under the post by running to the left, running to the right, running through the middle. I'm just going, how did he do that?
Just half a dozen defenders left.
And he's playing within the team structure. He's playing behind a great pack of forwards.
And that's a big thing to point out. It's not hero ball. He's not going out there trying to force his hand. He's just playing within the structures, within the system, and then exploiting the opportunities that come his way. Yeah,
and they play football. Mitch at the beginning of the pre-season said, we're going to play football. This team, he's got a good halfback in Lincoln. Cam's done a great job at fullback.
The balance is there, isn't
Kanakis, hooker. They've got a really good spine. They've got Nathan Howlett that can play fullback or anywhere else. So they're playing a brand of football. It's, if you wanted to say it's similar to anyone, it's probably similar to Melbourne, where they don't, lay and go for play. They play and then they'll play football.
It's
next
all
tackle.
Yes, every phase is supporting. It's very good.
So and everyone knows their job. So they're a great team to watch. But you would expect them to go deep into the finals.
And we talk about it all the time, don't we, Craig? I love how scripted sometimes sports feels like it is, because the fact that the Eels meet the Roosters in the first week of the finals, the team that stopped them from having that perfect regular season, it just. If you didn't know better, you'd think someone's pulling these names. Out deliberately. It's just, I love sports for that reason, just the narrative.
Well, I suppose it's the same as the NRL. Jason Rolls wins against his old club. Gutherson scores first. Lomax kicks penalty.
The truth is strange in the fiction oftentimes when it comes to professional sports, and obviously semi-professional here for the
We live in the Matrix. That's what it's all about.
No, good stuff there. All right, let's keep moving on now, and we'll get you to put on your NRLW hat because, of course, as our listeners always know, you have the the dual roles in the club. Since we last spoke, the Eels have actually made a nice little acquisition, and they've signed former Queensland School Girls Rugby League representative and Reds Academy Rugby Sevens player, that's a mouthful, Fleur Ginn, and we understand it's a 2-year deal, and she comes to us as a back. So what can you share about her signing and what you hope to sort of get out of her, given you've gotten some value out of the rugby union converts in the last 12 months?
Yeah, well, with Rosie Kelly leaving us, she was the centre last year, and so we thought we were probably down in backs, and she can play fullback or centre or wing, and so when we had a look at them, we zoomed her up in Queensland. She was playing in their equivalent of Tarsha Gale under 19s in Queensland. We found us a very mature person, someone that is driven internally, and that's what probably excited us most. That at that age, being 19, she was living on her own, had a job, been around the world playing rugby in the Rugby B, I think Australian team. Yep. That's what excited us most, and then we watched her football, and she's got speed to burn, very similar to Rory Owen in that case, but she has got a rugby league background, which was a bit different to Rory. She didn't have a rugby league background, so we thought, yep, definitely worth pursuing, and she'll come down next week, and I think she's actually in the grand final for their under-19s equivalent this weekend. I'm really happy and excited about her joining, and looking forward to what she can give our team.
It's there's a real feel about the team that it's a young developing team as well. Like that there's a lot of years ahead of a lot of players.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you'll find that in a lot of the NRLW teams. There's sort of the older players that started the NRLW that set it all up for these younger girls coming through, and there's not that middle age group. I'm trying to get along. Obviously, Matieli's 25, 26, Abby's 25, 26. There's a few of them, but then you're going down to 19, 21, or you're going to 29, 30. So there is a big divide. But the amount of girls that are coming through, the Fiaola and the Tarsha Gale system, and the academies that we've got here as well. There's a lot of talent, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah.
And those squad building considerations are always just fascinating to hear about what you're trying to balance as a coach, and all the different things that come from just both talent and experience, and trying to find the correct intersection there. So thanks for your insight there, Steve. And on that note, I think we can let you get back to work.
It's always exciting to talk when you're a few days away from the finals,
and
for the pathways. So.
Very pumped on that. And on that note, we do look forward to hopefully catching up with you with all 4 teams qualifying for grand finals. Surely that's on the horizon to the Eels. But
that would be, that'd be
something.
A big grand final preview chat.
And I know that's been a little bit gritty, but there is definitely reason to believe that the Eels can have multiple teams qualifying for the grand final, or at least making very deep finals runs. And how that all plays out, we'll touch base with you in a few weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, well, all teams and all coaches, that's their goal.
It's a whole new competition, isn't it? Yeah.
So, there's no reason why, but again, you've got to be better than the opposition. It's as simple as that.
Well, thanks so much again for your time, Steve. We really appreciate your generosity. Yeah.
No worries at all, John and Craig, and have a good week.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks.